Are you more at risk for substance abuse? You might be. Drug and alcohol use is a significant issue in the GLBT community. We see it in the media, in the community, and often in our own homes. What's causing this phenomenon, and what can be done to help solve this pressing problem? To help us wade through this wide-reaching conundrum is Judy Calhoun, the Executive Director of the GLBT Community Center of Colorado, which is the lead agency for Smoke-Free GLBT. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Fantastic. Nicole Fardell is a local psychotherapist who is working on providing competent care to the GLBT community, including making treatment for substance dependence a safe place for anyone, regardless of sexuality or gender identity. Glad to have you, Nicole.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Well, let's start with Smoke-Free GLBT. What is that, Judy?
Smoke-Free GLBT is a statewide project funded through some of the tobacco tax grants that includes the center and 6 project partners around the state and here in Denver, and then also our youth services program through Rainbow Alley.
So are we starting to see more treatment that's specific to GLBT or programs that are addressing GLBT?
What we are doing right now is actually doing some data collection. One of the issues for the GLBT community when it comes to a variety of health issues is that we've not been studied. Sexual orientation and gender identity are not usually questions asked when data collection is done on a variety of health issues. So we're trying to find out a little bit more about why people in the GLBT community smoke and what could help them stop smoking. What have they tried, what's worked, those types of things. And then we'll start to model, do some test projects based on that information. We've also been doing some work between our project partners and the local county tobacco programming, so that the counties are starting to include LGBT issues within their tobacco work. We've been doing some training of the quit line to make the staff on the quit line, again, more sensitive to sexual orientation and gender identity. And then based on what projects work, what seems to be helpful, we'll be doing more work in the community around Colorado. Our project partners include the Lambda Community Center in Fort Collins, Boulder Pride in Boulder, Pikes Peak Gay and Lesbian Community Center in Colorado Springs, Western Equality in Grand Junction, El Futuro here in Denver, and Brothers Forever also here in Denver.
So it seems like this has become a huge issue, not only in Colorado, but
nationwide. Yes, nationwide it's an issue.
Is it true that the gay community is more at risk for addictions? Nicole, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely true, unfortunately. The research just tells us that we're at higher risk, that, you know, for youth who are going through the same issues that all adolescents are going through, they have the added piece of sorting through their identity, you know, their sexual identity or their gender identity, of dealing with homophobia, of heterosexism, and that just puts on the added stressors, you know, in youth, but for the whole community that really put us at greater risk. Another piece is that the care, you know, the treatment isn't always available to the GLBT community in a safe way. You know, you don't know if you're going to go into a group and if you disclose your identity, how's the group going to react? Sure. Are the providers going to know issues specific to what you're dealing with? So I think a lot of things that Judy is talking about is so important, to have that outreach, to have a place for people in the community to go that they know they're going to get safe care.
And does that include smoking? Are we more at risk for smoking?
We are definitely more at risk for smoking. Actually, lesbians smoke almost 3 times the rate of straight women.
Wow.
And gay men, it's about 50% higher than straight men. LGBT youth, again, smoke at significantly higher rates than their straight peers. And those are, again, limited studies, but a number of them, and all seem to point to some of the same issues in terms of that. And one of the things we were talking a little bit earlier about that Nicole brought up, you know, in an area like Denver, that's a large metropolitan area, it is much easier to find resources. You get into more rural areas, less populated areas, and the resources are more limited, and you do worry much more about how safe those resources are.
So I go into treatment and it's a very unfriendly, unsafe place to be. Possibly. Am I going to finish it out? Possibly, am I going to complete my treatment? Do we know anything about failure rates of treatment centers for gay and lesbians? You don't have to know that. I'm just wondering.
You know, one thing that I did read was that there's, when you have GLBT-specific treatment, so like the center offers a 12-step program, that the treatment rates and the dropout rates are much less. The treatment is much more successful than when someone gets treatment just in the general area.
So that's good. That says a lot for smoke-free GLBT.
Right. And for any of the work that our agencies do around any kind of substance abuse. It is really important. Whether or not people use the specific programs, also knowing that a program they go into is going to be sensitive to sexual orientation and gender identity issues is really important. Knowing that your healthcare provider is sensitive and aware of those issues and is going to be open is also really important. And much of the work around substance abuse has to do with healthcare.
Sure.
I mean, it's
so in Colorado, people can use your Find a Provider website.
And that's all. I mean, that's part of the resources that an agency like the center provides. But again, in some of these rural areas, our project partners with Smoke-Free GLBT are dealing with much more limited resources, much less friendly. And supportive community. Yes, yes, yes.
So what can be done, whether it's substance abuse or whether it's the quit line, what can be done to make it a more friendly atmosphere or safe atmosphere for GLBT people?
Training providers, you know, making sure that there are very clear statements that there will be no tolerance of any, you know, type of homophobic comments made in the group, addressing issues, asking questions about people's identity as they're coming in, being able to do that on a one-on-one basis. One of the things that I've been doing at the University of Colorado is working on developing a treatment program for students who are at risk for getting suspended from the university. And that brings the issue up right there of how do we make that an inclusive group so that all people, you know, can come in and feel like it's a safe environment. So one of the things we do is, you know, have a one-on-one meeting with them, have check-ins regularly to make sure things are going okay, but also just advocate in the group, make statements ourselves as, you know, group leaders that are very, you know, affirming and inclusive of everyone.
Showing good models for behavior.
Exactly.
What are you telling the people at the quit line?
The training we've been doing on the quit line is general sensitivity to LGBT issues, trying to have them actually ask the questions, because part of it is if the question doesn't get asked, if you don't get asked about, you know, what's your, whether you want to actually say what's your sexual orientation or what's your living situation or describe your home environment or who are the significant people in your life, some of those types of things, if those questions don't get asked, oftentimes for many people it's hard to bring it up. You know, the work I do, I get really used to saying, you know, my partner this or whatever. But for a lot of people who are in a much more closeted environment, or again, as Nicole said, don't know whether it's going to be safe, how often do you say, well, you know, I'm gay and
you're putting yourself out there quite a bit.
You're taking a risk. And then for folks who are transgendered to go into those issues is an even bigger risk. And you're already confiding something, you know, you're calling the quit line to say, I want to stop smoking, or you're going to an AA meeting to say, I want to quit drinking, or another 12-step group, or another substance abuse program, you're already confiding something that's incredibly personal.
Sure.
And so it's really important that the providers are open to asking some of those questions that make it a safe place.
And open to letting the client decide how they want to deal with that. Do they want to be out in the group? Do they want to discuss that? And not assuming that their identity is necessarily a contributing factor to their substance abuse issue, because it can be and it cannot be.
Do you think that it's beneficial to have strictly GLBT groups for recovery?
I do.
Why do you think that would be beneficial?
Because you're in a group of people where people are going to get it, it's going to be safe, you don't have to have that added pressure. It's hard enough to go in and get treatment to deal with this. And so if you're going into a group and you say something, there's some comment made against gay people by another person in the group, that could be a trigger to use.
Sure.
I mean, if you experience, the homophobia in the group, that's part of what you're dealing with outside of the group. It's just not a good situation. I mean, I think there can be groups. I think we need to have groups that can have everyone there. I don't think we need to have only exclusively GLBT groups. But I think it is important to have that option available. Definitely.
Judy, do you think that that kind of atmosphere, as Nicole was saying, would act as a trigger? And maybe even keep people from seeking treatment because of that?
I mean, my sense is that it probably keeps people from seeking treatment, and it may be a reason to leave treatment. If you get that kind of a trigger, you don't want to go back. Not a substance abuse issue, but we had a person who called in several months ago whose partner is in an Alzheimer's care facility, and she wanted a support group, and she'd gone to one of the general Alzheimer's spouse support group and didn't find it supportive because somebody had made a comment.
Sure.
Another person might not have reacted the same way, but
we don't really need any more hurdles.
We don't need any more hurdles, not at all. What's interesting when it comes to tobacco is that some of the research shows actually that LGBT folks are not necessarily interested in support groups. And I think it'll be interesting to see as we finish our surveys this spring as part of the Smoke-Free GLBT project, to see what people really do say. The research
instead of trying to force something upon them that may not even work, may not even be interested in.
And a lot of the data we have is from a study done in California.
So we still need more research.
We need a lot more research on our community, especially when it comes to our health issues, and we need those folks that do general health research to include sexual orientation and gender identity. Those are important issues.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, we're running out of time. And I want to, it goes very quickly, and I want to hit on a little bit of what would you suggest to our viewers if they're dealing with either a substance abuse problem or a smoking problem. What would you suggest to them, Nicole?
To definitely contact the center, to find out about some of the groups that are going on there, to use the website for finding the treatment providers. Look for support in your friends, with your family as well.
If it's there, if that's available.
If it's available, absolutely.
Judy?
And I would say get help. We want this community to be healthier across the board, and that's really important to us. And if you have friends that you think have substance abuse issues of any sort, give them the support to get help too. I think as a community we've kind of not necessarily pushed our friends and those people who are really important to us to get help and to take care of themselves.
And often we have this idea that, well, they're not family, so I shouldn't dictate what they have to do, but they call us family for a reason. I mean, our friends become our family.
Exactly.
They are our main source of support.
Well, and I think we want to be supportive of each other. We want to be open to all of our differences. We've lived in a society that says this is the box you're supposed to be in, and we don't want to be in that box. But when it comes to substance abuse, encourage if it's something that you personally think is an issue for you, get help. And if it's something that's an issue for the people around you, encourage them to do it, because that's showing you care about them.
Yeah.
And if I've learned anything from tonight, it's that there are resources available. There are safe places to go. So I think that was a great idea of contacting the center, looking at their website, and getting more information.
And getting more help. Yeah.
Well, thank you both. I know we've just hit the tip of the iceberg, but that's all the time we have for today. Darn it, we'll have to pick this up a different day. Well, we have to leave it there for tonight. I want to thank my guests, Judy Calhoun.
Thank you.
And Nicole Fardell.
And thank you, Fawn.
Thanks for being with us tonight. Be safe and have fun. Good night.